You know the White House is trying to figure out how to blame this on DEI, right? It's like they come from the blackness of space, these asteroids, and so anyway, it might be time to pull Ben Affleck out of that Dunkin' Donuts, get him back on the rocket. Which, yay, I guess? I don't know. The flu, COVID, and norovirus are on the rise, and those are only a few of the diseases you were exposed to as you entered our theater tonight from Hollywood Boulevard. Why, we've got a little music. We've got strep throat and mono, and the norovirus, RSV, herpes, gastroenteritis. How about effective 2 years ago? How about effective Friday when he wrote, "I am a Nazi" on Twitter? You needed the weekend to think that one through?
You know bullies? You know what a bully is, right? You know the bully, I've always, and I found it throughout my life, a bully is the weakest person.
Does he have any self-awareness at all? They have pickleball, it's going to be... And the way he goes from subject to subject, he's busy. 1 minute he's with ethnic cleansing, the next he's tweeting about shampooing his hair.
Prime Minister, you are talking tonight about the United States taking over a sovereign territory. What authority would allow you to do that? Are you talking about a permanent occupation there, redevelopment? And Mr. Prime Minister, do you see this idea as a way to expand the boundaries of Israel and to have a longer peace, even though the Israeli people know how important that land is to you and your citizens, just as the space is inherited by the Palestinians as well?
All over the world will be there, and they'll live there. Palestinians also. Palestinians will live there. Many people will live there. But they've tried the other, and they've tried it for decades and decades and decades. It's not going to work. It didn't work. It will never work. And you have to learn from history. History is, you just can't let it keep repeating itself. We have an opportunity to do something that could be phenomenal. And I don't want to be cute. I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad.
People go in the mean.
We've reached a point where old bald men are openly fantasizing about getting a good pounding in the shower, thanks to Donald Trump. But that's the level of fealty required right now. The White House yesterday banned reporters from the Associated Press because the outlet refuses to call it the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America, which is the name Trump has given it because he is dumb. So they kicked them out of the Oval Office. They're like, you cannot report from here anymore. And they're going to keep kicking journalists out until all they have left are Fox, Newsmax, OAN, OnlyFans, and Golf Digest. That will be it.
This is a lot to take in. I mean, I especially like the president. Everyone I have spoken to loves the idea of the U.S. owning this territory, though he didn't say who everyone was. I mean, for all we know, it was Jared, Ivanka, and Trump himself. Put into perspective all of this. What do we need to know tonight?
Yeah, Steph. Well, first of all, to your point, I also was struck by that. Jared Kushner actually did publicly speak last year in recent months in ways that hinted, perhaps presaged this breathtaking and really outrageous proposal from Donald Trump. It didn't come from nowhere in that sense. Jared Kushner definitely has talked about this in terms almost more akin to that of a real estate mogul assessing a piece of land than someone who understands the complicated history and the tragedy of the 2 million people who live there, the tragedy of the war with Israel. It's almost as if both Kushner and his father-in-law stripped that out of the equation. I think what Donald Trump said tonight, it obviously is probably one of the more breathtaking things we've heard him say. It is certainly.
Okay, Larry's definitely having trouble peeing, right? This is a cry for help. Stand up and let us see the front of your pants. I want to see what's going on. What is happening? This is the business news. When did we turn into North Korea? Who gets this fired up about water flow?
OMB Director Russell Vought. Russ, welcome to the show. I hope you look forward to one of these great pounding Trump showers again.
I do, Larry. Thanks for having me on.
Google and Apple Maps have both fallen in line with this Gulf of America thing.
Donald Trump recently made headlines again, this time with an outrageous outburst that could only be described as a toilet water tantrum. In his latest rant, he reacted to mounting criticism of his disastrous Gaza plan by doubling down on his controversial decisions. Instead of acknowledging the gravity of the situation, Trump chose to defensively launch into an incoherent tirade, branding his critics as bullies who didn't understand his grand vision. This tantrum was yet another example of his refusal to take accountability for the disastrous consequences of his actions, especially as the Gaza crisis worsens. His response to the situation was not only deeply troubling, but also revealed his inability to approach the conflict with the necessary sensitivity and diplomatic foresight. Rather than seeking peaceful resolutions or reflecting on the humanitarian aspects of the issue, Trump fixated on defending his stance, no matter how flawed it appeared to others. But before we dive deeper into the drama, let's take a moment. Quick favor, if you've been enjoying the commentary, hit that subscribe button. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing, and it costs you nothing, but it means everything to us. Great, you clicked it. Thanks so much. Now, let's get back to the chaos. In the midst of his rant, Trump compared the criticism he faced to being doused with toilet water, a metaphor that seemed not only bizarre but deeply disconnected from the reality of the ongoing conflict. "They throw water at me, and not just any water. It's toilet water," Trump said in his usual exaggerated fashion. "But I keep going, I keep pushing." The comparison seemed to make little sense, especially coming from a leader who was supposed to represent the United States with dignity on the global stage. Yet, for Trump, this bizarre imagery was a way to portray himself as the resilient hero who, despite facing immense adversity, would continue to push forward. His emotional outburst only further demonstrated his pattern of avoiding responsibility and redirecting the blame elsewhere, particularly on those who dared to question his actions. Instead of addressing the concerns surrounding his Gaza plan, he preferred to paint himself as a victim of global bullies, choosing deflection over diplomatic dialogue. Trump's Gaza plan, which many consider a diplomatic disaster, has been met with backlash from both domestic and international sources. His handling of the situation has increasingly been described as reckless and short-sighted, with little regard for the delicate nature of the conflict. Despite this, Trump remained steadfast in his belief that his approach was the correct one. His refusal to admit any fault, coupled with his tendency to lash out at critics, has raised serious questions about his competence in navigating complex global issues. Instead of using this opportunity to reconsider his policy or seek input from experts, he resorted to the familiar tactic of deflection, turning the conversation into an emotional appeal about being misunderstood and persecuted. As his tantrum continued, Trump's behavior reflected his broader political style, a blend of denial, victimhood, and irrational bravado. His supporters, once steadfast in their loyalty, are starting to question how long they can stand by such erratic behavior, especially as his policies continue to falter. The spectacle of Trump defending his Gaza plan with such emotional volatility has only deepened the disarray surrounding his foreign policy legacy. Instead of addressing the real issues at hand, Trump chose to attack the very people who were trying to hold him accountable, continuing his narrative of being the misunderstood outsider in a world full of enemies. In the end, Trump's toilet water analogy and his emotional outburst were just another chapter in his ongoing saga of deflection and dramatization. His inability to take responsibility for the consequences of his actions, combined with his penchant for hyperbole and victimization, paints a troubling picture of a leader who is unwilling to acknowledge reality. As the situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate, it's becoming increasingly clear that Trump's tantrums and blame shifting will do little to resolve the crisis. His focus on maintaining his image at the expense of addressing the actual needs of the situation only exacerbates the chaos he's helped create.